Oh my god, hey, it's me, Mickey Jo, and today I'm here at the Theatre Café Diner in the West End to meet with one of the West End's most beloved stars. Whether you first encountered them starring as Gavroche in the 25th anniversary concert of Les Misérables, or with their brilliant one-person solo show, My Sons Are Queer, But What Can You Do?, you may already have fallen in love with Rob Madge. This year, My Sons Are Queer was set to open at the Lyceum Theatre on Broadway, but unfortunately has been postponed. To tell us a little bit more about that chapter in their own words, as well as many exciting upcoming projects, including a return to the West End this weekend with a brand new solo show, a return to the Edinburgh Fringe for My Sons Are Queer ahead of a UK tour, and another starring role in this year's pantomime at the London Palladium, here is Rob Madge. We're here in the lovely Theatre Café Diner.
Yes, it's lovely.
Here in the West End. In like less than a week's time, you're back at the Garrick Theatre, bringing your brand new show for 2 shows. People can still get tickets for the matinee.
They can. Only a few left, but yeah, tickets from £22 for the matinee, which I'm very happy about. Yeah, evening's almost sold out, but if you can come along.
I mean, the response to when you announced that, and we'll talk about the whole journey to get there through My Sons Are Queer and everything, was pretty spectacular in terms of how excited people were that you were doing this, that there was a new Rob Madge show. And what I wanted to, because on the back of going through, because you were at RAM.
Yes.
I know this because my friend Louise worked there at the time.
Oh,
yeah.
Lovely Louise.
Yeah.
Flew?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Lou flew.
Yes, who knows everyone. Shout out to Louise. And I remember seeing a video of you practicing waving through a window and that stuff. And it struck me that, like, it's such a different you as a performer then, and it felt as though you were trying to find where you fit in the industry, and now you are Rob Madge, and you are so embedded in the industry, and you are quite beloved by the West End and the people of the West End, I think, but leading with authenticity made that happen.
I think I boiled that down to the world going on pause for a year, and I just thought, what have I got to lose? I had spent a long time trying to fit myself in boxes that I wasn't meant to fit into. Yeah, it's only when I started doing my own stuff that I realised, oh God, if I'd have known that it was putting on shows in my living room when I was 9 years old that would end up becoming the successful part of my career, oh God, I wasted so much time. I should have just done that from the beginning, you know? So yeah, it's a good lesson, I guess, to just stick to your guns and realise that, you know, your uniqueness is what's going to make you do all right, I guess. Yeah.
I think it's hard, especially in the face of the industry and casting and everything, that you get told to do that and to just like be your authentic self when everything seems to be suggesting you have to do this and this is what you're seeing in other people.
Yeah, and everyone does say that, just be yourself. But within parameters, it feels sometimes. It feels like there's a little bit of a cut-off point to how yourself you can be. And I just rejected all of it. I was just bored of the rules and the silly things that you had to abide by, really, when all I'm interested in is telling a good story and making people laugh, making people feel things.
I do want to go back and do a lot of the Les Mis stuff.
Oh, yay!
Actually.
That's good.
Because
Don't ask me about that anymore.
Because this is the thing. I have enduring Les Mis questions.
Sure, let's go for it.
You are the best Gavroche that I think I've ever seen in my entire... Because they're very sweet, often, like a lot of the Gavroches, and it's child actors, so they're doing a wonderful job, and like... But you're like, you were really good as Gavroche.
Well, I think I'd honed my craft as precocious cockneys with Dodger before.
Yeah.
So I'd done a year as Dodger, so I knew how to do the urchin by that point.
I had this chat with Hannah Lowther, who you crossed paths with, I think, as child actors.
We did Oliver together, yes.
Yeah. And I was asking her if there was anyone she'd worked with as a child when they were an adult who she's then encountered again as a professional musical theatre adult.
Yeah, plenty of people, actually. I think of Carrie. I mean, Carrie did Mary Poppins about 6 months before I started, so we were always sort of nearly crossing paths. Yeah. Lewis Cornet, yeah, we did Poppins together.
Yeah.
Idris Cargbo, I went to Sylvia Young Theatre School with, and Leighton Williams. Yeah. I think anyone that went to Sylvia's, lots of people really have all ended up doing it.
On Carrie, she's been doing this thing where she returns to the show she did as a child actor later in the adult roles, and you had a brief dalliance with Les Mis as one of the French Thénardier gang names.
Unnamed tenor 2, something like that.
No, you had, what was the...
It was called Jean Prévert.
You were Jean Prévert.
Yeah, he likes books and the flute, I think, is something that I read.
Was he a student revolutionary?
He was a student revolutionary. He was flying that flag. I wouldn't really say it's my casting now. Oh, I also played the lad that gets trapped under the runaway cart, which is, He's called Fauchelevent. He has a name. Claude Michel Schoenberg came to watch us do a sing-through. And at that moment, when I have to go, Monsieur le Maire, you come from God, you're a saint, he literally goes, this is where I go and get a cup of tea. Like, baby, you wrote it.
There's a cut line in Thénardier's Gang that is on like one of the old recordings, and it's very intense, and Eponine's screaming, and there's just one of his gang members who sings, "What a palaver, what an absolute state." And I was like, that's a lovely little Rob Madge moment, if ever.
Wouldn't that be lovely? That's my dream role, the palaver Thénardier gang member.
Yeah, they're just there with like, they're ready to rob this old man. He's like, what a palaver.
Like how you do the hunch as well.
Yeah.
That is how I would perform it, like Mrs. Overall.
That's the moment, yeah. All of like your cultural references as a young person were very broad, and I think did a lot for informing the nuanced child actor performances that we ended up seeing.
Very nuanced. It's all Victoria Wood and Sondheim. Yeah, very broad. Yeah.
Who introduced you to, like, where did the Victoria Wood stuff come from?
It was just always in our house. Yeah. I think my dad got me the DVD of Acorn Antiques, the musical, which I just adored. I didn't understand half of the reference points, or didn't understand the parody. I think it's a work of genius now as an adult. As a kid, I just thought it was quite funny. And Julie Walters being a Brummie, I'm a Brummie, so that made me giggle. When you look back in hindsight, the first act of Acorn Antiques, the musical, is just full of the most genius satire. And that really inspires me now as an adult. And I think, just her comedy and Caroline Ahern's comedy, the British working class northern comedy is just, I love it so much. And I relate a lot to it as a little Brummie kid.
On the dawn of My Sons Are Queer, people may already know this story of how it came about, but you were going through it and you found old family videos.
Yes.
That then put them on social media, and they got very popular and went very viral.
I didn't envision doing a show out of the videos I was posting. I just thought they were funny and I wanted to make people laugh in the pandemic, really. But it was the comments that I get from people saying, my dad wouldn't have let me wear a dress, or my dad did do this. And I thought, well, why don't we see other like supportive father figures when it comes to queer stories? I feel like they're often non-supportive or not even there at all. They abandon. There's lots of supportive mothers in queer stories, and shout out to Jam Madge, I love you so much. But it was important for me to do a story about the relationship between a young boy at the time, I guess, and father. Even in 2001, when people are saying that in 2024, if a father were to support their queer son, they'd be woke, as though woke is a bad thing, and it is so stupid and girl, it was happening in 2002 in my living room, and I got the videos to prove it. So that's why the show came about. And Paul Taylor Mills did a tweet in lockdown saying, when theatres reopen again, I want to work with new writers. So I just sent him a DM and went for a coffee. I think it was a really good selling point that it was a solo show, because it makes life easier coming out of the pandemic. So none of us had any sort of idea of how the show would end up doing. We just thought, nice idea, an easy show to do coming out of lockdown, one person, sweet little videos, yada, 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 and then sort of a domino effect from there, really, yeah.
Yeah, and you've had brilliant collaborators as well with the likes of can we talk about the wonderful Pippa Cleary?
Always, all the time, who's in my show. She's got a little featured role in regards to Broadway. So Pippa Cleary is just a genius. She is... We wrote the show in one night. The first night I met her, I played her a couple of reference points, because Luke introduced me to Luke Shepherd, my director. He knows Pippa Cleary from, they did Adrian Mole, the musical together. So he goes, it was a couple of weeks before we were due to have our first show, and it was just a straight play. And we were in rehearsals, and Luke goes, I think we need a song here. So he introduced me to Pippa, and then I can't imagine it without the songs now. She just sits down and just does it. I would give her a few lyrics, and then we have a song. She's just incredible. She's a master at her craft.
I love Luke Shepherd there for appreciating the art form of musical theatre and telling stories through songs. I think especially in British theatre, we can get very enamoured with the straight play and the traditional. And I think Luke is someone who's so brilliant, obviously with his work recently on The Little Big Things and with Just for One Day, he just understands storytelling with music.
Yeah, the way he crafts a story. I mean, it's got my name as the script writer, but really Luke shaped it. I presented him with a draft, and then we went back and forth and pieced the jigsaw together of how to best actually tell the story. In the original draft, that puppet theatre moment, which happens in the show, comes towards the end, and it's a moving bit. That was much earlier, and it was much more throwaway. Then me and Luke our ideas bounce off of each other, and it's says it's a solo show, but it's not. It's his and Pippa's and Rosie's and Ryan's, the set designer. It's so many brilliant people who turned all of my messy ideas into something nice. And Turbine was going to be bish bash bosh done. We were just going to do that. And then Edinburgh, the idea of Edinburgh came up, I think as a consequence of getting the What's on Stage award. We thought, oh, maybe we should do it again, because people clearly enjoyed it. And the Fringe, I think, is where it really took off. I loved going there. It was the perfect place for it. The vibe of that whole city in that month of August. Wow, I love it. Yeah, so Fringe, August 2022. Yeah.
And you're going back to the Fringe this summer.
Yes.
For like the first half of the month?
Yeah, first 2 weeks. So it's part of our tour. It's our penultimate stop. And it's a big venue. If you know anyone Scottish, please, for the love of God, tell them to come. If we have to pull the show again, I will never work again, please.
You'll be fine. It's going to be a huge success. And you're in, because it's in McEwan Hall.
It is McEwan Hall.
Lovely Luke Bayer is going up at the same time with Diva Live from Hell. He's never done the Edinburgh Fringe before.
Oh, we're going to run riot. I'll show him the ropes.
I was going to say, I feel like you need to do a little bit of guidance.
I'll be flyering with Luke Bayer on Royal Mile. I don't think people realise how funny that boy is, because, you know, his brand and he does his high tenor songs and he plays a lot of romantic leads and love interests. That boy is chaos and carnage personified. He's so funny. I'm like, Luke, try out some stand-up comedy one day, my darling. The people will love you. They do already, so it's perfectly fine. Damn it, he can sing really well and be funny.
I was going to ask if you saw him in Diva. We saw it on the same day.
Oh, yes, we did.
I was sat behind you. I remember that, yeah.
That was just after the... it's not funny, but it was just after the Queen had died, and all shows had to open with a minute's silence, and Luke's first line is, "Welcome to hell." And I was like, this is... inappropriate. Yeah, NIMAX came to watch the show at Fringe and then gave us 3 weeks in October, which was lovely. And yeah, I loved doing it. And then we did the Ambassadors in 2023. But that was a rough time because I lost my grandfather the week before we opened, which is crap anyway. But when he's in your show, like his image and his voice, and I was not prepared to deal with that every day for 10 weeks. So it's kind of grieving and performing and paying tribute, and it almost felt like this lovely show which is celebrating my family. I was worried that it was turning into like a eulogy almost. So there was a lot of thoughts going on in my head at that time. So yeah, the one time I got to sit down, there was a lot happening personally. I'm excited to go back to it this time afresh and to take it to, you know, Birmingham and Coventry. That's going to feel like, we're not sitting down, it's a tour, but it's going to reignite my love and my passion for it, doing it for, you know, people that live down the road. Yeah.
And you've got that shout out to like the Wolverhampton Grand.
See, they're gonna love it. That wouldn't have worked on Broadway, would it? Come on.
One of the many remarkable things that happened after the Love for My Sons Are Queer, Palladium Pantos.
Yeah, I never have imagined it. Never. I mean, Panto is where I fell in love with theatre. I always go to the Birmingham Hippodrome pantomime or the Wolverhampton Grand pantomime, whichever one was cheaper. And I remember seeing Julian Clary in, I think it was 2003. He was playing Dandini and Cinderella. You know, I didn't have the words for it at the time, but something in me clicked about this guy wearing these outrageous feathers and costumes, and also getting such good laughs. People loved him. That image is what everyone fears. But then you have the most mainstream audience, a pantomime, lapping him up. So yeah, then to work with him now, I'm deeply honoured, and I learn a lot from him, watching from the wings every bloody day. But yeah, Michael Harrison was the producer on Bedknobs and Broomsticks. So he saw me in Bedknobs, and then I was playing a fish. Then he goes, "Do you want to be a cow?" So I think I'll do a good animal for Mike.
It's interesting with pantomime because there is so much to it that is flamboyant and that is sort of inherently queer, really.
Yeah.
But it's not historically been overt.
No.
And especially in this recent one, in Peter Pan, and the whole brilliant production number that you got to do and the role that you got to play. I mean, I have to tell you, West End musical theatre as a community were already so excited with Rob Madge and Palladium Panto, but when it then materialised, like the roles that you were playing in these shows, it's really special. But it's also quite powerful as well in terms of, I think, the breadth of audiences seeing that show and a lot of families seeing those shows and what you got to do on stage.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I'm very proud of particularly the last one. And they're very open. The whole team are really up for collaborating. You know, I'll be the first person that they ask for ideas for costume, for example. So instead of saying to them, I would like the trans flag on the costume, which I don't know, could ring alarm bells. Instead, what I say is, I'm envisioning some like pale pinks, bit of white here and there. So I was really proud of that, to get that in there. And that song, Michael said, do you want to do a big number, I Am What I Am, but mashed up with Born This Way? I was like, really? Wow, thank you so much. So the fact that they don't just get me on there as a token, they really do give me free rein, and they embrace me for myself, and I love that. I'm very grateful, and I feel like that can be kind of rare, especially with these big productions. I mean, it peed a lot of people off, but if you're not peeing people off, then you're not doing it right, in my opinion.
That's an equally important part of the whole thing.
It is, yeah, massively, because otherwise you're preaching to the choir. But yeah, plenty of people were like, it's a bit too in your face with that fairy this year. Lots of people aren't happy that I'm back, because I was flying that flag last year, and that's too much. But Julian Clary making blowjob jokes is not. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that's funny, and that is very graphic. All I'm saying is, I am what I am, and that's terrifying. It's such a weird, I don't understand people's thought processes. But I'm back. See you there, Marjorie from wherever, Hull. I love Hull. You're not from Hull.
Cow at the Palladium Panto.
Yes.
And it wasn't a traditional pantomime cow in the sense, or like a pantomime horse, that would normally be two people. But were it to have been, who is the back of your pantomime cow? Who are like the dream?
My dream back end of my cow?
Yeah.
Probably Rosie Morgan would always be the metaphorical front end of the cow. I'd definitely be the arse. She steers the ship, our Rosie Morgan. Rosie was the stage manager of My Sons Are Queer. She's an absolute legend. So yeah, me and Rosie Morgan. I'll tell her we've said that. She will laugh.
But the fish was also quite iconic.
Yes.
In Bed Knobs and Brews. I was so enamoured with that fish puppet and the fact that it had teeth.
But the veneers,
Yeah.
That fish had gone to Turkey.
Yeah.
My God. It was wild of them to give me the job, because I'd never done puppetry before. But I gave them my best... The brief on the casting breakdown was, we're looking for like a Phoenix Nights bingo caller. I was like, that's perfect. So I gave them my best impression of that, then got the gig, and then the first week of rehearsals, when I actually had the puppet, I think everyone was like, oh God, what have we given them? But we got there. It's just heavy. No one tells you how heavy puppets are.
So from fish puppets to some of the most exciting costumes you've worn on stage, and we can talk about the Palladium Panto, because it was a stunning, lovely cow outfit, but also the Tinkerbell, like you said, the meaning of that, and that meant an awful lot. As soon as people saw it, I know people personally who that meant really an awful lot to.
Oh. Well, it's subliminal, isn't it? It's you're seeding it unconsciously,
Yeah.
and then people are appreciating it, and they're not realising what they're... And I think that's kind of one of the ways I approach things. And the people that it affects and touches, they will see it. And if you're not affected by it, you probably won't even notice it. That's the way. So if you know, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what's really important to me. And everyone else, when they do go up in arms about the trans flag being put up in our local pub for pride, I'm like, but you saw the panto. I was wearing the same colours, and you didn't have an issue that, oh yeah, I was. So what's, you slowly start to introduce the concept to people. I mean, it's not that deep, is it? It was the panto, it was the costume.
But it is. This is
yeah.
the thing. It's those little details, but there is a power to that. And it also, like you said, it signals to the people who do recognise it that, that's on that stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I was proud of that. I was very concerned to lose the cow, though, because that did most of the work for me in Jack and the Mean. That was just funny. I didn't have to open my mouth and people were laughing. So then I was like, I actually have to come up with some funny lines this year.
But then also, on the other side, because you have these, like, gorgeous, very detailed Palladium Panto costumes, but the costumes in My Sons Are Queer, for looking deliberately, like, cobbled together and crafted, are also quite spectacular.
Yeah. Ryan Dawson-Late is the set and costume designer of My Sons Are Queer. Recent Olivier nominee for Regent's Park, Le Cage aux Folles. He's a genius. He is... Oh, this is a line in regards to Broadway. So spoilers, but you were not ready for the New York versions. The stuff that it was good before, but wow. You give that man an even bigger budget, and he's just a genius. I said to him, I want it to look like, you know, those challenges on RuPaul's Drag Race where they have to fashion something.
Of course.
But it needs to be the top toot of the week.
Yeah.
From that week, it needs to be the winner of the challenge.
Yeah.
And what that man did with a couple of yellow bin bags, it's insane. Yeah, he's very clever.
So let's talk about the Broadway of it all. You've done the Garrick and you've done the Ambassadors, and it's come from the Turbine and it's come out of lockdown, and it was this amazing thing that it was going to be going to New York, and so this was going to be at the Lyceum as part of this Broadway season.
The show's been postponed, is the short story. Aiming to get the show on probably next year. People are still working immensely hard. I'm having meetings pretty much every week about it still, so the conversation is very much ongoing, and I'm determined for it too. Yeah, essentially I got a phone call 2 weeks before I was due to fly over saying that it's not happening now, which was a shock. I did not expect it. And we were saying before we started this interview how crazy Broadway is in terms of packing in so many shows.
And how much more expensive everything needs to be, which I think is a big factor.
I mean, the money that had to be raised for a solo show, my jaw was on the floor. I was like, for what reason? What are we going to do with all of that? But everything costs so much more to put on, which is why all the tickets are so much more. And it's just a whole different business model. And I've got to grips with it very quickly since February. I wasn't up to speed with it, really. I was, I got the offer. Who's going to say no? Maybe naive, but like optimistic, I think is the way. And why not? Like you say, the show, it's a good show, and I thought it deserved it. Everyone wanted the best for it. I haven't worked with anybody who I feel has, screwed me over. It's not that kind of story at all, really. So sorry, there's no like tea to spill. Everyone's lovely, and we've all been really ambitious. Because why not? If you're not going to take a big swing, go home. And I'm home. If the worst case scenario were to happen and we don't go to New York, I'm very hopeful and I do think we will, but if, I refuse to let that be the end of its story, because it just deserves so much better than that. I'm not having people think it's a flop. I just refuse.
And it's worth saying, so I think New York still needs this show, because we think of musical theatre as being very queer, being very LGBT plus inclusive, but there are a lot of stories, even still, more broadly within the LGBTQ plus community, that aren't told on major stages. And this was going to be the first show with queer in the title of a Broadway show. There was still a lot of ground being broken here.
And, the Q word scares a lot of people. There's been the voices in my head going, change the title, maybe that will help. But no, I've got to stick to my guns with that. That's so important to me and it's a bloody piss take of a line in Les Mis is all it is, really.
If you didn't know, now you're learning. It's a Les Mis reference.
It is. Thénardier sings, I don't think sings anymore, but used to sing.
I think it's cut,
Used to controversially sing, this one's a queer, but what can you do? And I thought, my son's a queer, what can you do? Perfect, a nod to the Les Mis days. And then all of a sudden, it gets blown out of proportion. It was only really when it was on the West End and there was a big poster of it that I thought, oh, I did not really envision this. I did not envision seeing, regularly groups of lads getting their photo outside that picture to take the mick and go, he's one of them, innit? I was like, God, this word can do something to people. The power. It's just language, for goodness sake.
Yeah. Ultimately free advertising.
And ultimately free advertising. Well, there was a guy on Tinder. It was sent to me. I did not find this profile. Somebody sent me a profile of someone using it as their main Tinder profile. Some cis gay being like, my son. I was like, Slay, did you come and watch it? No, you didn't.
Enduringly, what it ends up being about, for me at least, every time I've seen it, is about parenting queer children and the care taken in that.
My favourite bit about writing is getting your audience in thinking they're gonna experience, my story, and then you leave having effed with them a bit, and they leave thinking something entirely different to when they first walked in. I think there's no point in telling stories if you're not making it universal and relatable. But for me, the universality of it all comes in its specificity by being so specific with it being my story. There's something about you see someone telling their own story and you attach yourself to it, and you look at my father and you start to think of your own father and X, Y, and Z. You know, the first line of the show is, it's very self-indulgent. That's intentional. I intentionally say that, and it's not just a throwaway gag. Feels like it at the time, but by the end of it, it's anything but, I hope. Because there's nothing worse than when someone shows you your holiday pictures, you know? And I didn't want it to be that. I didn't want it to be like, oh God, we're watching this person show us their home video, for what reason? So it had to have a point. And again, Luke Shepherd was very good at ensuring that that was the point throughout. So there were so many videos that we ended up cutting. You know, the archive of the Madge family living room productions is huge. But we're like, is this furthering the point of the story? No, it's not. So I just put that one on TikTok instead.
There's sort of no point in telling an individual story unless either A, it and they are remarkable, or B, it transcends that and it becomes universal. And your show does both, because yours is a remarkable family. And there's something I remember you saying on social media where people were saying how lucky you were to have the parents you did, and you're sort of evading that a little bit because that's not how it should be.
I'm glad you picked up on that. I agree when people say that. I just think it's unfortunate that to be unconditionally loved by your parents is considered luck. It shouldn't be, right? But it is, and I am lucky. But yeah, I do kind of take issue with it when people, you know how lucky you are. Yes, I've just done a whole bloody show about it. Were you watching? Yeah, I know. And it almost like, not to get too deep, but like reaffirms that you should be ashamed in an odd way. Like, you know that you're lucky. Oh shit, I should go home and thank my lucky stars that I haven't been abandoned. Yeah. But because that does happen to people. Yeah. And I think that's why people say it, because they haven't been as fortunate, which is just deeply upsetting to me. We aren't lucky, they are. We bring them joy. And, you know, it's a two-way street. Of course I'm lucky. They're brilliant for me. But whenever I talk to my parents about it, they go, we had such a laugh putting on those shows. And they are now the subject of many strangers coming up to them saying, you're such a good parent, how did you do it? And they're like, I don't know. We just did. We just raised our child. Yeah. They don't think on anything too deeply like I do. That's why I love them to bits. They just love their kid, and I love them. Out of all of this, a new show coming to the Garrick Theatre next weekend. Tell us a little bit more about what's in store for audiences at the Garrick. Chaos and carnage and a therapy session. No, it's truly a light at the end of the tunnel for me, this show. Lambert Jackson asked if I wanted to do a concert it was in March. Me and my parents were in Devon at the time, and it was meant to be the week of press night. And whilst I was there, Lambert Jackson got in touch and said, do you want to do a concert? And since then, it's been this, like, I've just been tunnel vision with it, and I've been writing on it. I still write on it every day. I think of something new and something funnier. But it's basically a document of all the comedy that comes out of a tragic situation. I believe you can't have great comedy without great sadness. Like, what is there to laugh at if there's not tragedy behind it? You know, pathos. I think some of the greatest comic characters, you know, that Victoria Wood sketch where she's the channel swimmer, I think is such a genius sketch because it is hilarious, but it's so sad. You know, I just think the idea of a character, yes, it was me, but if I'm thinking about it as a writer, the idea of a character who is about to achieve their wildest dreams and is getting big for their boots, and yes, I'm gonna slay and I will win Tonys. That's not true. I did not feel that way. But like the idea of that kind of character, and then within the space of one phone call, being in your grandma's old spare room with net curtains back in Birmingham, and you're in the village pub, and people are, well, you expect people to, you expect it to be breaking news, and you think everyone's going to be talking about it. Turns out no one actually gives an F. And the idea of how something that's so painful, in the grand scheme of things, people have other things going on, and that allows for a lot of comedy, a lot of misunderstandings. I had a conversation with someone where I arrogantly thought they were talking about the show. Turns out they were talking about something entirely different, and we had a full 5-minute chat of me being like, oh, but don't worry, I'll get over it. And then at the end they're like, what do you think I'm talking about? And also it's a comment on the state of the industry and and the state of queerness within the industry. It's a lot more honest, I think, than any work I've done before. So yeah, I'm excited to trauma dump at the Garrick Theatre.
Beyond this, and beyond the Broadway run of My Sons Are Queer to be, what are your aspirations in the industry look like now? Perhaps different from when you were training from like the roles and like, oh, that's a dream role in an existing show.
Yeah.
What is it that you hope to be able to, maybe there is a dream role or maybe it's something a little different?
I'm just a lot less narrow-minded than I used to be. I used to be like barricade boy or nothing. I'm just not that now. So I'm just up for trying lots of new things, really. Yeah, more straight acting, more plays, please. I'd love to do. And I don't know. Look, I really am enjoying writing. So maybe a little bit more behind the scenes every now and then, because I do love being on stage. That's only 10% of the work I feel like I do, actually, and the rest of the 90% is crafting it, and I love crafting. I don't like standing on the X, I don't like going into shows where it's like, this is a machine, it's been running for 25 years, and stand where the light's going to hit you, because that's how it's been programmed for 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, amazing, but like, if I were to say dream roles, I feel like all the dream roles are in those kind of shows, so I'd enjoy it for a month and then I'd probably get frustrated. So just stuff where I can create and do my own thing and do things for other people as well, and write for friends, and that's something I'd like to do more of, because I've got so many brilliant, funny, talented friends.
Well, I can't wait to see all of it. I'm sure your show next Sunday is going to be terrific.
Likewise.
I'll be cheering you on from the Phoenix Arts.
I shall too.
I'll be asking people about it, because I know there are people who are going to see your matinee and then coming over, so I'll be thrilled to hear all about it.
I love that.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Taking the time, and best of luck with the show, with everything.
You're always so supportive. You do so much for the industry. You do realise that, and you are very loved as well. So thank you very much for the work you do.
Thank you, Rob Madge. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, you can still get tickets to the matinee of
Yes,
My Regards
you can.
Broadway.
Yeah, there's a handful left, from 22 quid. Saturday, Sunday the 26th of May.
I hope you enjoyed this interview. Make sure to grab your tickets to give My Regards to Broadway this weekend at the Garrick Theatre in the West End, as well as My Sons Are Queer, But What Can You Do this summer? For 10 more seconds, I'm MickeyJoTheatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!